Thank you, Manas, for being here today.
Of
Um,
course, it's my pleasure.
I'm super excited to have this talk with you. I reached out to you last year to see how you can contribute to a new school that I founded only last year. I'm still building the school, but there's a lot of interest. Ayurveda in the Netherlands is really growing. So I'm super excited, and not only for the Netherlands, but for offering education in Europe. Now, of course, we're not the only ones, but yeah, I'm just so grateful that you can be also part of the faculty.
No, and I have to congratulate you. This is one of the hardest endeavors to undertake is not only starting an educational platform, but building the awareness in Ayurveda
Right.
and all of these Vedic traditions, yoga, meditation, Ayurveda, even things like Gandharva Ved and music and um, aromatherapy. These are all things that have been practiced throughout very different manners. Okay, but being able to bring all of that under one umbrella, I think it's beautiful what you're putting together.
Yes, thank you so much. Well, first, for those aspiring students here in Europe that don't know you yet, I'd love for you to share your personal journey because you have a special upbringing already from a young age with Vedic sciences all around you. But please share a little bit, introduce yourself, and I'd love to hear your personal story about your upbringing, right, with
So
Vedic.
I grew up in a Rig Vedic Bramhin household, and what that means, for those of you that are not familiar with the maybe outdated caste system in India, is Rig Ved Brahmins were the priests of the villages, and so they were the priests, they were the Jyotishis, they were sort of looked at with a lot of revered respect, as well as a little bit of wacky tendencies. Okay, these are a little bit weird people.
Hmm.
And so they were always a little bit removed from society. But the beautiful part about this culture is its reverence to spirituality.
Mm.
And it's not just a Hindu or Christian or Muslim kind of a context when we talk about spirituality, but rather that of nature. And the very first thing that we were taught when we were kids, as soon as you step out of bed, okay, is to literally worship and honor the ground that you walk on.
Mhm.
Before you cleanse yourself, right? Or before, excuse me, before you perform any of your duties, right? Whether it's work, whether it's education, whether it's house, you cleanse yourself. And so the first thing you did, you hop out of the shower
Mm.
and you pray. I still remember very vividly sitting down with my grandmother when she would, uh, we would pray and we would polish and set up all of the deities and give them baths the same way that we bathe ourselves. And we would pray to each one on different days of the week were different deities that we appreciated. And this sort of foundation was built all upon knowing yourself, right? Giving up the ego of who we are and putting our faith in a larger
Right.
and larger perspective.
Yeah.
And when we talk about Ayurveda, when we talk about yoga, when we talk about meditation, any of these ancient Vedic sciences, it's all about removing the ego of who you are and truly getting down to the consciousness based approach to allowing yourself to be your true self, right? Without any veils.
Right. And how, and when as a young child, how, of course, offering this in a way that can also be playful. Do you have any memories of that? Because offering that to a young child versus a teenager is so different, right?
It
Um,
is. It is. And they're all stories. Okay.
mm,
All of the chants, all of the prayers, they were told to us orally. It's an oral tradition, right? And so at the time, I didn't know what Sanskrit words meant, right? It sounded more like a song. It sounded more like a hymn. And so that in itself was very playful. It was like poetry.
yeah.
And you were taught to memorize it and repeat it. And it so much so that it gets stuck in your head like a song. And you'd be at school, and this chant or this prayer is playing in your head over and over again. There are different uh, practices. One is watering of the tulsi plant. Every Indian household, Brahmin household, will have a tulsi plant in their backyard. And so after you're done with the prayer, you take that water and you run it out to the plant and you water this plant with it. Tulsi, for those of you that don't know, is holy basil, right? And so it's meant for, it's a very good nervine tonic,
Right.
very good for the mind, memory, all that stuff.
And it's great
And
to
so
absorb EMF, right? Also, having a Tulsi
absolutely,
plant next to your computer.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And so you go and you water this plant. And when you were going to school, your mom, grandma, whoever would pick a little leaf off of that tulsi tree and have you eat it, right? A bitter taste. And so you're nurturing these relationships with nature, with everything around you in a much different way than I feel um, children in the West, especially, are being brought up.
Right. Yeah, it's such a big difference.
And
And
it was
so,
very weird at the time,
mhm,
right? Because I came from this culture of understanding and respecting, sort of doing what you're told, right? These are things that, because we didn't know better, right? We did what our parents did. We
right,
did what our grandparents did. We followed in their footsteps, right? And they're doing these things repeatedly over and over. Sometimes they don't know why they're doing it. They're doing it because they were taught it, right? And it's not until you get older and you realize some of the benefits of these practices and how much more resilient it makes you because of that upbringing. One of the things that I always sort of joke about when I lecture is whenever I would go to a birthday party, everybody around me would be drinking soda and fruit juice and things like that. And I was the awkward kid who asked for hot water,
yeah,
or lemon in my water. And I didn't realize at the time, and these were just things that weren't around the household, soda or fruit juice or anything like that.
yeah, yes. And how, yourself now being an Ayurvedic doctor and practicing, how logic was that, or was that something natural that happened over time? How did that
No,
go?
not at all, not at all natural. My parents are both Ayurvedic physicians. And so when I saw them struggle to set up a practice here in the US very early on, I told myself that I wanted to be a real doctor, that I wanted to work in a hospital. I would have job security, I wouldn't have to worry about setting up a private practice. And so I wanted to be a proper medical doctor. And the relationships that I was being taught to foster in medical school was so different from what I saw growing up. Right, my parents would give out their cell phone numbers, or people would come to the house to see them. People would pay on a sliding scale, pay with fruits and vegetables, and
Wow.
different foods and spices. They would trade with different people for different things. Um, the relationships that they had with their patients were is almost like family, right?
Right.
They genuinely cared for and respected their patients, and vice versa, right? And this was so different from what I was being taught in school. Right?
Mhm.
Always be respectful, never ask too many personal questions, don't ask about their children or their relationship, or their income, finances. We ask very weird questions in Ayurveda. We ask if you're paying your bills on time, or if you're happy in your marriage, or if you have a good relationship with your children. Because if these are the things that are impacting your health, we need to know about it.
Right.
Right. And so this relationship was very, very different. And so I actually went back to India to study Ayurveda um, after college and everything here. And when I came back, it felt much more in line with what I wanted to be doing and how I wanted to be helping people.
Beautiful. And so, how do you incorporate yoga, Ayurveda, and Vedic astrology in your personal life? Can you share a little bit about that? How does that manifest in your life?
Of course, of course. I did yoga teacher training very early on, simply for the knowledge,
Mm.
simply for the sort of structured practice of understanding what yoga really means. And it's so much more than just the asana practice, which is what we're taught in the West. Whether
Right.
a yoga class, you practice just the asana practice. Um, the components of uh, even just the meditation. I have people who jump up and leave at the very end of yoga practice because they have to get to work, or they have, whatever it
Mm.
is. And so the consolidation that happens during savasana, they are not reaping any of those benefits.
Right.
And for me personally, yoga is so much more than just the asana practice. It is, in theory, in actual practice, behaving and acting and conducting business and work and relationships in a manner that is very holistic.
Right.
And when we talk about Ashtanga yoga and the different limbs of yoga, what they stand for is really how you should yearn to live your life,
Mm.
practicing detachment, practicing non-attachment, practicing uh, such a truth, true speech, practicing nonviolence and ahimsa, and some of these
Mm.
very basic concepts that we don't think about on a natural, on a daily
No.
basis. But if you practice them enough, over time, they become innate. They become a part of who you are. And it gets to a point where you no longer have to actively think about those choices. Right? They become very easy to make.
Right.
That's the beauty of practicing not just the asana portion of yoga, but all the eight limbs. And same thing with Ayurveda. The relationship. One of the questions that I asked in my intake is, how much time do you dedicate for self care?
Mm.
How much time do you take for yourself? And people will say maybe half an hour, an hour. And that's fine, whatever it is that they're allowing or allotting for themselves. But the kind of self care that they're performing is not really self care.
Right.
Okay, it's simply distractions. They might be watching TV, they might be listening to music, they might be reading. And in theory, that's fine. These are all good things, can be good things, but they're all more sensorial inputs for the body to digest.
Yes.
Right? Where self care, you want to feed the mind, body, and soul and nourish it. And oftentimes, when we're able to shut down those sensory inputs, right, and go inward, that's where true self reflection, true self love, true self care come from. It's not from the external environment.
And so for you, that means you have your sadhana practice that you do in the morning, and of course the Ayurvedic dinacharya and everything. That's how you wake
It's
up
how we,
and
it's how we structure the life, right?
yes,
You wake up in the morning, you meditate first thing in the morning. Okay,
yes,
before you bathe, you lather yourself in oil, right? You do abhyanga, you shower. Um, Certain days, spring, fall, you do nasya. Okay, it's often the times where people get more congested.
mm,
And the beauty of it is it's tailor made to your individual prakriti.
yes,
Right? For a vata person, you need to do abhyanga every single day. That's non-negotiable, right? But for a kapha, you can get away with only doing it a couple times a week,
yes,
doing dry brushing a couple times a week. That's fine. It's non-negotiable for a kapha person to sweat and exercise on a daily basis. Not necessarily so much for a vata or pitta person. And so the beauty of dinacharya, the beauty of yoga, meditation, even a sadhana practice is that you can make it whatever you want it to be. Oftentimes people think this
yeah,
is the dinacharya. This is, if any of you have tried to perform the ideal daily routine in Ayurveda, it takes 6 hours just in the morning. Okay, yoga, meditation, abhyanga, nasya, gandush, oil pulling, tongue scraping, cooking a fresh meal,
Right.
evacuating bowels, all of it. Right? It takes a very long. Nobody has that kind of time. But you structure it in the way that you need the most to create balance in your body. And that's the beauty of Ayurveda is it's so personal, it's so tailor-made, it's so customized
Yeah.
that when you learn these things in a systematic way, you can really change lives by making the most simple of recommendations.
Yeah.
I used to have, I can give so many stories, countless stories. And one of the courses that we teach, disease management, is actually based in these clinical stories. Okay, is because it helps people to sort of paint a picture and just see how dramatic small changes can really add up to.
Mm.
I had a client who would wake up every morning feeling extremely anxious and heart palpitations, heart beating, just very anxious and nervous and fearful all the time. And she would wake up with that level of anxiety.
Mm.
It would just carry on and intensify throughout the day. Okay. And what, through the intake, we went through everything. We asked her what she was doing, what all of the diet, routine, lifestyle recommendation questions. And the first thing that she was doing as soon as she woke up was making coffee. And so I told her that you need to stop drinking coffee. She said, impossible. I said, okay, fine. For the first 90 minutes that you wake up, don't drink coffee. Once you get to your work, your office, you can have your first cup of coffee. Okay. But for those first 90 minutes, just drink water.
Mm-hmm.
Hot water, lemon hot water, even better, but just water. And she did this, and in 3 months, she was literally getting much deeper rest simply because her cortisol wasn't spiking even more because of that coffee intake.
Right.
Right. And so, in theory, this is such a small change. Pushing your coffee 90 minutes, anybody can do that. Right. But in practice, if you do it over and over again, that has a snowball effect. And the allopathic word that we are so afraid of is side effects. Mm-hmm. What are the negative side effects of this herb or drug, whatever? In Ayurveda, we look at all of the different side benefits of these things. Mm-hmm. Because of that 90-minute window, right now she was having cleaner bowel movements. Okay. Yeah. She was going to bed earlier because she was feeling tired. She was waking up feeling rested, refreshed, and not anxious and wired. She was able to focus at work because she wasn't worried about her health and well-being and what's going on. And so there's so many different side benefits to just this one little change. Yeah. And once you understand the disease process, managing those diseases in their individual prakriti and vikritis becomes so very easy. Yeah. And that's the beauty of this disease management course that we will be teaching, is it's helping people understand not only the imbalance in the person, but what the disease itself is, how that disease progression takes place. And oftentimes people don't think about it. I've been drinking coffee for 15 years, whatever I forget what she said, but I've been drinking coffee for 15 years every morning. I don't go a day without it. Right? She says it almost as if she's proud of it, right? But it's that same compounding effect that she has ended up where she is now because of it, right? It's not because she had one cup of coffee early in the morning one day.
Do every day, day in, day out. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So beautiful. Let's talk about this course, which is the disease management that's upcoming, and especially remedies for modern diseases, right? Because diseases have evolved also over time with, we're exposed to so much more toxins than ever, I think, and autoimmune disease is increasing. Cancer increasing. It's even though the development, if you look at medicine and Western medicine, we've made such advancements, yet people are getting sicker and sicker, it seems, right? And so this course that's upcoming, I would love for you to talk to us about why, as Ayurvedic health professional, even though you are already practicing, why this course would be so helpful and so beneficial, as a practicing Ayurvedic professional.
Absolutely. It's one of those things where if you truly learn and know the basics of Ayurveda, right, the more you learn, the more you realize how much deeper there is. There's so much knowledge and so many different nuances, both from the classical texts
Mhm.
as well as, like you said, our interpretation of those texts in application for today's world.
Mm.
Okay. Everything that you mentioned, from autoimmune conditions, cancers, these are even simple metabolic conditions, are
Right.
starting so much earlier in life. Okay. We're seeing women in their late 30s or early 40s going through perimenopause. Okay. We're seeing girls as young as 6, 7 years old starting their periods. Right. We're seeing men as early as late 20s
Mhm.
having low testosterone and premature balding and low libido. Right?
Yeah.
All of these things are being pushed forward. One of the scariest statistics that I've read lately is in the cord, the umbilical cord of newborn babies, there's 13 different pharmaceutical drugs
Yeah.
that come from public drinking water
Yeah.
that moms drink. Right? And so these children are born, babies are born having to fight ama
Yeah.
and fight this toxicity in the body. And they don't have a chance, right? We're inundated now. Our foods are inundated with herbs, herbicides, pesticides, so many different microplastics surround us, right? The advent of the use of polyester in clothing and
Mm.
just workout clothes and everything just being very foreign
Right.
for the human body, right? I was at uh, a neurology conference in Toronto one year, and there was a neurologist there who said it very very simply, and she said, it's a cartoon analogy. She said that we are Flintstones living in a Jetson world.
Mhm.
We're these very sort of rudimentary creatures, right, barely evolved, trying to keep up with the hustle and bustle of modern technology. And right now, I have 3 different screens in front of me. I carry my cell phone on me all the time.
Mhm.
I have different wearables that tell me when to breathe and what my heart rate is,
Right.
and all of these different inputs that are so removed from who we are as humans and as individuals, right? As Deepak Chopra always likes to say, we are human beings, not human doings.
Right.
And we have forgotten how to just be. And I think that's the biggest problem with modern imbalances and diseases is there's so much vata disturbance in the world today, right? Both mentally, physically, emotionally, even
Mhm.
spiritually. There's so much uh, debility and angst and fear at the state of the world. Everything from global warming to politics,
Mhm.
so much happening that people feel like their health and well-being needs to be on the back burner.
Right. And that's why I think it's so important that we speak hopeful, that there's ways to, that we can't avoid all of the toxins, but there's ways that we can take better care of our bodies to prevent,
Absolutely.
right? And it has to be, we cannot count on just the ancient ways of the way that we would detox. We have to evolve that as well with the vastness of toxicity we have today, both on the spiritual level, mentally, emotional, physical,
And
right?
people experience it, right?
Mhm.
Ayurveda, yoga, meditation, these are all very um, they're consciousness based, so they're almost subjective emotions that are being expressed. Okay, it's a quality of science, it's not a quantity science, and so you have to experience it. 95% of our patients are referrals. We don't do any marketing, we don't do any social media, we don't do any
Mhm.
any sort of uh, marketing, right? And it's all referral based.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how you build a community of like-minded individuals, right? What was your desire or inspiration to start a school?
Exactly that. It's really preparing the future Ayurvedic health professionals to be able to deal with just the fast changing world. Like we have to do it differently. So I was inspired to how can we do it differently, also incorporating not just Ayurveda, but incorporating the yoga, the Vedic astrology, and even Tantra for that matter, because people all have this different view on what Tantra is, and to be really to be instead of to be doing, right? But that's really an inspiration, that's having gone through education myself, missing often that link. Even when I did my yoga teacher training, missing Ayurveda, but how can we incorporate that to have more a holistic approach? And I think that inspired me. And I love sharing. I love teaching. I think that's the biggest reason why. But it's exactly that. How can we offer more, even more holistic approach, even though Ayurveda is very holistic, by taking yoga and Vedic astrology and even modern science and bring that all together? I think that's what we need to train. We need to train the future Ayurvedic health professionals that way. Have the knowledge also to be able to speak to modern medicine or Western medicine, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And people experience the difference and they want to learn more. They want to try different things. We have so many people come to us from yoga. We have so many people come to us from Western medicine, right? And then all of a sudden, they're interested in yoga. Then they're interested in
Mhm.
meditation. And so it's a trickle down effect where the more you unfold the layers of the onion, right, the more you realize that it's ever evolving, just as we are, right? You will have a number of different lifetimes in this one body. Okay, your childhood is completely different from your young adult life. Young adult life is completely different. I don't know if you're parents or a mother or a father, or if you have an area of the world that you live in. Right? I was born in India, brought up here in the States, very different life.
Right.
And people will go through so many different evolutions of themselves, right? But if you know what that core is, if you know who your true self is, that never changes. And people spend a lifetime trying to figure out what that is, when all of these sister sciences is the perfect blueprint. It's a cheat code to
Yeah.
figuring out who you truly are
Yeah.
and being the most authentic version of yourself.
Yeah. Beautiful. And so, kind of to wrap it up, what would you like to share with the aspiring people that want to are considering to follow the course on the remedies for modern diseases, right? What would you like to share? Why should they join us?
Modern remedies, especially this course, is very unique in the sense that it talks about ancient recommendations for modern imbalances. It's easy for me to sit here and tell a software engineer who spends 8, 10 hours in front of a computer screen, don't do that. Right? But if
Mhm.
that's not possible, right, what else can you do to incorporate the same amount of quiet, stillness, and solitude that you would if you were sitting in a forest doing tapas and meditation somewhere? Right? And these modern remedies are nothing groundbreaking. They're all very ancient practices. Right? But like I said, we don't think about them on a daily basis. Right? And bringing that present moment awareness into giving yourself a choice to make, right, is how these even modern remedies, modern imbalances are cured, are treated.
Right.
So
Yeah.
for everybody who wants to learn about these ancient practices and ancient recommendations, the easiest thing to do is to go backwards, is to move slower, think slower, right? Instead of the fast-paced life that we're leading, everything has to be instant gratification.
Yeah.
What are you
And
doing for? Go
yeah.
ahead.
Yes, wonderful. And so you'll be covering quite a few diseases. I think you mentioned, I remember when we spoke about 30, but it's going to be very thorough. We're going to go through the pathology,
Yeah,
through
everything from ADD,
protocols.
ADHD, anxiety to metabolic diseases, disorders, diabetes, hyperlipidemia, dyslipidemia, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, hypertension, all of it.
Yeah, it's going to be very in-depth.
It
Wonderful.
is. It is. And the pathology, the physiology of it, along with the recommendations and remedies from a Vedic perspective, not just Ayurveda, but like you were mentioning, yoga,
Mhm.
meditation.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I would like to end, Manas, with because this month at the school we are tuning in with the theme of Venus being exalted in Pisces in Vedic astrology, that is. And, it's all about love. It's all about self-care, relationships, the divine feminine. And I would just like to wrap up and ask you, um, the importance of, self-love and self-care in relationships. And that can be any relationship, just to end with that. And maybe you have a practical tip to, nurture our relationships. Especially this month, we have to, I think, take advantage of this energy, right?
A lot of people think that relationships, love is a two-way street, right? You give and you take, and there's two halves to a coin, two halves to a heart, and it's very important to remember the analogy that we like to use is if you are able to water yourself, okay, and help you grow as a person, okay, you are doing that for the other
Mhm.
person, for your partner, right? It's not, I will take care of you if you take care of me, but rather, I will take care of myself for you.
Mhm.
Right? And that's what self love from an Ayurvedic standpoint boils down to is really taking care of yourself first so that you can show up in the most authentic way, in the most holistic manner that you can, and put your best foot forward so that whoever is in your life, whether it's a romantic relationship, whether it's parental, whether it's a friendship, whether it's work, you are as fully capable and present in those moments because you are so grounded, you are so centered.
Yeah,
It's
beautiful.
difficult to be in any relationship when you don't know who you are.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much. I think that's an inspiration, I think, for people to reflect upon and maybe even have as prompt like, okay, how can I nurture myself? And actually, I did put, I think, yesterday on Instagram, a beautiful prompt for that, to journal and to reflect. So I'm gonna post that again and share that. I want to thank you so much for our time together.
My
And
pleasure.
I'm going to put up all the information for people to look at the course. And I look forward to connecting soon again on another theme or a specific question that may come up. So thank you so much.
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you in class.
Yes.